if you can use Slido to ask any questions, and we'll monitor those. And without further ado, I'll introduce Steve Howard, who is Head of Product for Cyber. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on our cybersecurity threat monitoring service, aka CSTM. Some of you may have been at the session last year, so this is a bit of an update as to where we're at, and the future roadmap of the product, and also how it fits into our wider cyber portfolio. So why did we even build this platform? Due to the ever-changing threat landscape, observability and monitoring of infrastructure is becoming even more paramount nowadays. You know, if you're blind to systems, infrastructure, you've no idea who's accessing what, etc., you're blind to any threat activity. Essentially, that's why we've built it, to provide that insight and necessary alerting as and when someone tries to infiltrate. The slide you can see there on the screen at the moment, nothing new. It's been used a couple of times in the conference already, so I won't go through all the points listed there. Our CSTM service, Cybersecurity Threat Monitoring, is a SIEM service, for those of you who know what a SIEM is. It's built on Splunk Enterprise Security, which is well-known. It's actually the Gartner Magic Quadrant leader in SIEM technology, has been for, I believe, the last 9 years. We've built that from the ground up in partnership with Splunk, using our knowledge and intelligence of what happens across the JANET network and connected members. So it's not an all-purpose, all singing, all dancing SIEM solution that the large commercial vendors offer, you know, for other industries such as banking, finance, industry. It's built specifically for the education and research sectors. However, it's important to note it's not just a SIEM platform, i.e. something that you as customers of the service would have to actively monitor. We provide analysts on screen, Jisc security analysts, who are constantly monitoring the customers' systems, responding to alerts accordingly, triaging them. You're always going to get the odd false positive, no matter how good your tuning is. And if it does show signs of true threat activity, they will notify the member accordingly. Not just an email, but in terms of more serious alerts, you'll actually receive a phone call detailing details of the alert, and importantly, sort of like a high-level steps to remediation or mitigation of that threat. It supports multiple data sources, which I'll come to in a further slide. It does provide 24/7 alerting. However, it's only analyst eyes on screen through business hours. Outside of hours, automation kicks in. We use a couple of automation platforms to provide that level of alerting. However, as already mentioned, if an alert of a sufficient urgency is generated out of hours, not only will you receive an automated alert, you will also receive a phone call from a real Jisc security person, just to ensure that you're fully aware of the severity of the attack. Already mentioned, we've co-designed the service, built it in partnership with Splunk, and what's also important to note, we actually launched this service into active service beginning of this year. So this time last year it was still in beta phase, being fully tested. Since launch, we've had a number of members sign up for the service, and speaking to them during service reviews, we gained feedback. It's important that we do gain that feedback and act accordingly on that to build out the service further. Part of the service, as I've already mentioned, regular service reviews, I believe they're quarterly now. A monthly automated high-level report of activity is provided by the platform. It's fully UK-based, so any concerns about data sovereignty should be addressed there. It's actually hosted on Splunk's cloud platform, for anyone that knows about that, which is actually hosted on AWS. So fully resilient across multiple data centers, all based in the UK. Data never leaves the UK. We do provide a fully guided onboarding service. If anyone's ever had to deploy a SIEM inside your network, you'll realize it's not a trivial task. Not only are there technical aspects, i.e. how do we get the data into the platform, but also what data is important. Part of the service, we provide a fully guided onboarding service. That's all included as part of the cost of the service. We don't charge extra for things like professional services to get you onboarded. The price we quote is the price you pay. There's nothing extra added on top. We have had in the past year a wide range of organisations join the service, from small FE to some really complex customers in the research sector. You know, domains across multiple campuses, multiple domain trusts, quite a complex beast to try and tame and understand where the data sources are, where the key data sources are, and how they all interact, and importantly to make sure we have no blind spots in the coverage. You know, a SIEM is only as good as the data you put into it. If you've got blind spots, then you just know that's where the threat actor's gonna attack first. So, bit of a technical slide, this one. The actual mechanics of the service. How does it actually work? So it pulls in data sources from multiple pieces of infrastructure. So they could be servers, domain controllers, firewalls. And it's not just on-prem we're covering here. We actually do plug straight into 365 tenancies. So we pull in, we can monitor for threats across your Azure estate, just the same as we do on on-prem stuff. EDR, we ingest data from, so things like Defender, CrowdStrike, and the third one, which Sophos. Those are the three key ones we support. So it pulls in threat intelligence from those EDR stacks as well, and alerts accordingly if those technologies detect signs of threat activity. The data, once it appears into the CSTM platform, it's what's called normalized. That's to make sure that all data from all connected members is standardized, to ensure that the detection rules that are deployed are effective across all connected members. No two organisations' infrastructure are the same. Hence, it's really important that we do, you know, that whole guided onboarding piece is not just about deploying the technology. There's also an in-depth piece about asset and identity information. That's absolutely key. I say it's absolutely key because we need to assign risk scores to across the ANI data, i.e. a domain admin account is going to have a much higher risk level than say a student account, and all that ANI data is risk scored accordingly. So if you've got signs of suspicious activity on a domain admin account, for example, you're going to want to know about that, and you're going to want to know about that right away. The risk level ensures that the right level of urgency alert is generated by that. Equally, if you've got a student account with a personal device that's constantly polling a system with the wrong credentials, eventually they realise the problem, get in. Technically, that could be a brute force attack. It's highly unlikely. The risk levels put that right down. It will pick it up, but it won't set off a million alarm bells. That is the absolutely critical thing about the ANI data, and I can't stress about that enough. We will not sign off anyone as live on the service until we are absolutely sure we have a full picture of what your infrastructure looks like, all the account information, because unless we have that, there's always the potential for gaps that typically would be where a threat actor gains entry. We have got tools to assist in gathering that data. I mean, we've got Ping Castle listed on there, but that assists in acquiring directory information, for example. And there's further developments in that space, and I'll come to that on the roadmap in a further slide. In terms of what happens when an alert is generated, if it's in business hours, an analyst picks it up, triage it, drills down. Is it genuine? Is it assigned the right level of urgency, etc., etc. And then they notify the relevant organisation accordingly. If it's out of hours, automation kicks in. Again, this is where the risk scoring is absolutely critical around A&I. Automation kicks in, so we have great confidence in the right level of alert being fired out of hours and ensure that it is a true positive. And that's covered there in the identify and communicate boxes on the right-hand side of the slide. This is where it gets interesting, because we're talking today about our CSTM service, the SIEM service. Yesterday you might have seen our session on SOC, which is something we're actively developing and will be launching next year. How does the CSTM service measure up against the full SOC? Well, essentially, without dumbing down too far, CSTM provides a threat monitoring and alerting service, i.e. it's constantly pulling in all relevant data from your systems, generates an alert, and notifying accordingly. That's where it ends. When we move into full SOC provides that response element, so that can then build into the, for example, quarantining machines, things like that, using the deployed EDR. The CSTM service is merely there to let you know something's happened, and then you would have to go out and action the alert. Just bearing in mind, though, part of your membership is access to our CSIRT team, our incident response team. So if you were to be a user of the CSTM service, you're notified of alerts, and you realise you're completely out of your depth, you don't know what's going on here, please get on the phone to CSIRT. And I always have to say this, I hope everyone's got CSIRT's phone number in their mobile devices, because if you get compromised, your internet's down, you can't even look up the number. It's absolutely critical that you've got access to their assistance. That's essentially how CSTM fits into the full SOC. It provides one of the key foundations of our full SOC in terms of it's still providing the same function. The full SOC just builds on that via additional automation to provide that additional response functionality in terms of quarantining endpoints, disabling accounts, etc., etc. So the simplified design in terms of CSTM as a standalone product on this slide, it still provides 24/7 alerting. It still monitors your critical infrastructure. Worth mentioning, we don't pull in data directly from individual endpoints, as in end user endpoints. The relevant data from those is ingested via the deployed EDR tools, i.e. if you've got Defender or CrowdStrike or Sophos, as long as it's deployed on the endpoint, that will pick it up, that will then fire it into the SIEM, and then the alert's generated accordingly. Where are we? Fully guided onboarding, I've already mentioned. I'll come on to the onboarding process in a further slide. It's an additional layer to all the critical services that are included as part of your Jisc membership. They're listed there. DDoS protection, for example, already touched on CSIRT and the importance of knowing their existence. Always should be your first port of call if you suspect signs of compromise, regardless if you're a user of this service or not, because it just helps our threat intelligence teams get on top of it and be able to protect further the basically all the users of the Janet network. That's why I really do push that point. Also, JNRS, always like to big that up, our protective DNS service. So it's essentially a free service provided to all the users of the Janet network. It's just just another level of defense in there. It has already proven multiple times its effectiveness in terms of things like phishing links. It pulls in feeds from multiple threat intelligence sources such as the NCSC, other NRENs, certain commercial feeds, etc. If a domain is a known source of malware, for example, that gets added to the list on JNRS. If anyone gets a link to that via a phishing email and unfortunately they click on it, that JNRS service essentially turns that link benign. It will redirect that request to access that link. So although it's not part of the CSTM service, it's available. It's part of your Jisc subscription. Please have a look at it, and if possible, sign up for it. In most organisations, it's quite. I say quite. I've seen it deployed in 5 minutes. Complex environments will need more time, slightly more effort, but it's not a difficult thing in the majority of cases to deploy, and it's just another level of defence for you. So back to CSTM supported data sources. This is not actually a comprehensive list. It would be impossible because if I did a list ready for this session, it would be out of date by the time I've done the session. We're constantly adding data sources, and the way we get intelligence from our CTI, our threat intelligence teams, against the threat landscape, but also it's about talking to members and talking to current users of the systems. They might be looking to deploy it, but they might have a new VDI system, for example, virtual desktop infrastructure, or a slightly obscure hypervisor system. Can we support it? Well, essentially the answer to that question is as long as there is what's called a supported add-in, and by supported I mean endorsed by Splunk, and is available on their Splunk base repository. As long as it's there and supported by Splunk, we are more than happy to integrate that into the platform to enable that effective monitoring of additional systems. And that's essentially how the platform has grown organically over the past nearly 12 months. In terms of speaking to members, we use, there's one there, VMware Horizon. I believe, I might be wrong, it's a remote virtual desktop environment. It provides virtual desktops for remote users. Came up in conversation with an FE, actually, I believe. Could we support it? Yes, we can. Looks like Splunk support it, so we could integrate that into there pretty quickly, and it's already proving its worth for not only that member, but other members that may have that technology deployed. So I won't go through all the core services, but obviously you've got Windows there. I've already mentioned when it says Windows, it means Windows servers, not Windows endpoints. How does it get into the system? Well, Splunk agents called universal forwarders are deployed to the relevant servers. That's a task on the member or customer to get that agent deployed via whatever method they use. They might use SCCM, I can't remember, that shows my age, can't remember what it's called now. Whatever software method you use to deploy MSI files, get it out there. You do not have to configure it. We do all the configuration once the necessary components are deployed. We've actually also simplified that part now. There's no need to host what used to be called heavy forwarders on dedicated Linux machines inside your network. We've now pushed that out into our cloud, into our data centers. So it is literally a case of deploying some MSI files, essentially. There's other use cases such as firewalls that need the UDP log traffic directed accordingly, but essentially that is it. Same with Linux. Deploy the relevant agents on there. Cloud systems, we support Azure, in fact the whole 365 stack. That ingests directly into the Splunk cloud. EDR, already covered that, the three main technologies we support. I believe there's a fourth one, but I'm going to say Trend Micro, but I might be wrong on that one. And then for network devices, it says network, but essentially firewalls. There's three there. They're only a sample because pretty much all firewalls talk the same language. It just needs the relevant Splunk component to translate that into the standard format. Sample detection rules. Well, this is already out of date. You know, it's all the standard stuff: remote RDP access, logins from weird IPs, etc., etc. Here's the nice techie bit. Customer dashboard. This is where it's slightly frustrating that this is a presentation and not a one-to-one, because we do actually have an interactive demo session that anyone that was interested would be more than happy to run through. We've built this out over the past year as well. This is actually backwards. This is the more interesting one. This is the actual alert dashboard. Shows you the number of alerts and their criticalities according to the color there. You get a nice timeline. When do the alerts occur? The dashboard you're looking at now is the demo system, which is why the numbers are a bit skewed. Essentially, you would want to see a nice flat line with nothing happening, and if there was signs of activity, you'd get a spike in that graph. Further down on the same dashboard is actually the details of the alerts. If this means nothing to you, then that's absolutely fine, because our analysts they're not actually using this dashboard, they're using the enterprise security dashboard. But essentially, if you've got the time or the skills to drill down into the alerts, those are the alerts on screen. You click on that and it'll drill down and pull up all the relevant event data. And so you've got everything you could possibly want to know about why that alert was generated: source IPs, destination IPs, user accounts, who did what, etc., what time, so on and so forth. Just go back to this screen. This is a slightly new addition. I believe it's only gone in the past month. Part of the scene that's really important, I've already mentioned about the ANI data, but it's really important to make sure that all the relevant systems are actually sending in the right data, or actually sending in data at all and haven't gone dark. If you've gone dark, we won't know. We're not receiving anything, so we can't alert on anything. We've built out this health dashboard that basically shows all your systems that are throwing in data, or should be throwing in data. There's predefined thresholds on all systems. You know, a domain controller is going to send multiple events a second on a busy network. Other systems might only chat once every 30 minutes and might have an event to send. So thresholds are set accordingly on that. You know, if a domain controller goes dark for 30 minutes, we're going to want to know about it, you're going to want to know about it. So this dashboard generates an alert. It goes red if something goes dark, so make sure we're on it. We'll get in touch with yourselves saying, we've lost sight of this, let's work together to get it back online. That's a recent development. On the roadmap, a new dashboard all around risk. That ties in with the ANI part I'd already spoken about. Obviously, additional data sources are going in all the time. Again, additional detection rules. Threat actors are always changing what they're doing. So, you know, we get feedback from our CTI team, our threat intelligence team, our CSERT team, what they're seeing with instance, with other members, etc., just to make sure that we're building out those rules as threat actors change. In the future, this one comes up in every conversation, not every conversation, but 90% of them that comes up. Can we search our logs for data? Currently not, but it's an absolute must-have. in the medium to long term. The data's there. We want to give customers of the service access to their data. It says there constrained search functionality. So as a phase one, we're going to do a limited search function, i.e. you can put in a user account, hit search, and it'll give you multiple reports on that user account did what, when, etc., i.e. logins, did they get a disabled account, etc., etc. So you get a report. That's been quite a common ask. Can we have a report? Has this user logged in the last 30 days? Well, the data's in the platform. We just don't offer that functionality at the moment, but it's coming soon. And also automated A&I management. Getting that important A&I data in, really helping anyone of the service, so they don't have to worry about keeping up to speed on an up-to-date CMDB, for example. We just want to automate that process. We're actually making progress on that now. I actually had a really engaging conversation with Splunk here yesterday about their tooling to facilitate that, and we're catching up on that next week. Finally, just conscious of time, 3 o'clock, how much does it cost? These are indicative prices. In order to give an individual organisation a cost for the service, we would send you out what's called a discovery sheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's not overly onerous, and I would imagine most places can complete it in the space of 10 minutes. It's essentially around numbers of devices, what your network looks like. Is it flat? Is it multiple segments? Is it multiple domains, etc.? Just list that, and from that we can pretty accurately, given our experience of having the service in beta and then launching it, we can be pretty confident that we will have the right ingest level to be able to quote you the price for the service. So quoting for the service is quite a quick task nowadays, unlike a year ago. Also, we do offer a slight discount. I think it's 3% for a 3-year contract paid annually. There's other tiers are available. These are only indicative ones. We offer 30 gig, etc., 75 gig, 100 gig, etc. Just really quick through this because I'm running out of time. Onboarding process. This is really getting into the weeds. Essentially, get in touch with us. We will have a scoping call. Before a scoping call, we'll have an intro call. We'll run through it. We'll run through the dashboard. What are you trying to get out of it? Is it the right fit for you, etc., etc. Prior to that, if you've already filled out the discovery document that we can provide, then we'll be able to give you a price on that intro call as well. If you accept the quote, we can then start deployment. It's really getting into the weeds there now. It's basically deploy the MSIs and leave the rest to us. Once you've provided the A&I data, we work with you to get that. We can assist with tools like Pingcastle, etc., to get identity information, things like that. Once the agents are deployed, we've got some A&I data. We basically let it run for a fortnight to get a baseline. What does your BAU look like? To make sure, every customer, every organisation has a different way of working, and thresholds for one customer are completely unsuitable for another customer. Some people might be adding accounts into privileged groups daily because that's the way they do things. Other customers might use a fully ID access broker for domain privileges. So domain admin privilege groups changes might be a one-off annual occurrence, and that's where all the risk stuff comes into as well. That's important why we let it run for a fortnight, get a baseline, then we tune it in conjunction with yourselves, let it run for a further fortnight. Are we happy with what we're seeing? Are you happy with what we're seeing? If everyone's happy, great, signed off, live. Once we're live, you can, sit back almost. You're provided with the dashboard, but it can be considered a completely hands-off service because you've got the confidence. We're monitoring it. The automation's monitoring it out of hours and will alert you accordingly. Quarterly, that is quarterly, yes. Ongoing quarterly reviews with a dedicated service manager to get, run through the alerts, hopefully none that have been generated, and also to capture your feedback and general satisfaction with the service, which we then proactively follow up on. There's a nice testimonial from one of our members, one of our earliest members, actually, I believe, of the service. And that's it. Thank you very much. So, open to questions.
Many thanks, Steve. Yes, I've got some questions here. So, if I'm interested in CSTM, have I got any routes to procurement?
Yes. As of earlier this month, not only CSTM, but our entire cyber portfolio is now available to procure on the government CCSG Cloud 14 framework, which I suspect if you're not actively involved in procurement will mean absolutely nothing to anyone. But essentially that aids that procurement route.
Thanks, Steve. You showed the ingest figures and the bandings.
Yes.
If I exceed 10 gigabytes per day, for example,
Yes.
Are we rigid in terms of the pricing changing, or?
No. Obviously, we have that initial discovery document. We work with you to get the ANI data to make sure everything's great. So we are pretty confident that that the price we quote, the band we quote, is right for you. However, if it does go over, there's two possibilities. If it's going over occasionally, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You won't get cut off. We do not ever drop data. One thing I haven't mentioned, if for whatever reason there was a connectivity was lost between the device and the cloud, all the relevant log data just is cached on the last device it can reach. As soon as connectivity is restored, it can then move on. So occasional breaches, going over the license is not even worth mentioning. If you're consistently over, normally due to a massive change in your infrastructure, then one of these quarterly service reviews we'll have a conversation about that to understand what's changed in your network and possible routes forward. If you were on a 10 gig license and you suddenly start pumping 30 in, then unfortunately we would have to have a conversation around commercials.
Thanks, Steve. Do we know how many HE and FEs are with our SIEM already?
Oh, now there's a question. There's 22. There's 22 before I went on holiday last week that were fully signed off live. The split, I've got a feeling that it's about a 50-50 split between HE and FE. We also have at least one, I can think, one research establishment using the service as a gateway to full SOC. There's an awful lot of interest in our full SOC. It's not live yet, but this CSTM service is proving to be an effective stepping stone to full SOC. One of the benefits of it, if you are already on CSTM, the step to full SOC service is nowhere near as onerous as starting from scratch, and anything around what happens if I've signed up for 3 years for CSTM and then suddenly I want to go to SOC, that's absolutely fine. We'll have the conversation and then pro rata the price, so you would never be charged double for the service.
Thanks, Steve. If we're interested in pursuing the conversation for our institute, who should we contact about CSTM?
Initially, in the first instance, just please contact your relationship or account manager and they can follow up.
That's brilliant. That's all the questions I have here. Would anybody like to raise a hand and ask a question? Is there any additional questions?
No,
No, that was brilliant. We're pretty much on time, so
awesome.
thanks very much, Steve, and thanks all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.